Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Thornborough from smalltownhomestead.com. Glad you're joining us today. The main topic of our show today is going to be how to protect your garden from everything that wants to eat it. I'm going to talk about a few things you can do to guard your garden against deer and rabbits and rodents, birds, bugs, all those things that want to eat your garden before you get a chance to enjoy it. So, but first let's chat about a few other things. Pickles. Is anybody else having a bumper crop of cucumbers this year? I have been canning pickles like crazy, and that's okay. We like pickles around here. I'll probably be doing a few more jars, then it's going to be a lot of giving a lot of cucumbers to some neighbors pretty soon, I do believe. I don't think I've ever had this many cucumbers off just a few plants before, but enjoying that. I want to let you guys know also about a new website out there I found. It's called the homesteadnetwork.com, and this is a group of homesteading content creators who have come together, and right now they have a show schedule for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights where different content creators go on YouTube Live and talk about different topics related to homesteading. So I think that would be something you enjoy. I would suggest you go and check that out. I think it's really good. And also, I just want to let you guys know about these Achocha Fat Baby Cucumber seeds I just got. I purchased those from AnAmericanHomestead.com, and I'd seen a video he'd done a couple years ago talking about them, the Achocha cucumbers. And I'd never heard of it before, and I was watching the video, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. And then he mentioned that he sold the seeds online, and I thought, well, I'm going to go check that out. And I went and looked, and he was out of them. And then I think I went and looked like a few months later, and he was still out of them. And I caught some this time. I went there just a few days ago, and he had some in stock, so I ordered some. And boy, there's some crazy-looking things. If you've never seen one of these cucumbers, you ought to Google it and check it out. They're really crazy looking. Read a little bit about them. I don't think I'm going to have time to, I was reading up on them. I don't think I'm going to have time to plant any this year. I'll probably have to wait till spring, but they look like a great crop to have. And I'm anxious to get them in the ground and grow some of these Achocha Fat Baby Cucumbers. Just see what they're going to be like. And yeah, I tell you what, I think I'm getting kind of soft in my old age. I went out to take the trash out the other day, and there was this baby bunny rabbit sitting there, and there was a cat. One of the neighbor's cats was over in my yard, and just a few feet away from the rabbit. And I yelled at the cat, told him to get away. And I reached down to grab the rabbit, and I got a hold of it. It tried to get away, and I got a hold of it, but then I looked, and yeah, the cat had done gotten a hold of it and, ripped a lot of its back apart and stuff. So, I had to dispatch the rabbit and take care of that. But, man, I'll tell you, that gets to me in a way like it never did when I was younger. So, I think there's something to getting older and getting softer, I do believe. I was pretty upset at the neighbor's cat. And, I've dispatched many an animal in my life, especially rabbits, raising rabbits and everything. But I don't know, when it has a purpose behind it, you don't feel too bad about it. But when you see it like that, it's like, stinking neighbor's cat. Anyway, let's get on with our main topic of the show today, and that is protecting our garden from everything that wants to eat it before we do. Let's just jump right in with deer. Let's talk about deer. I live on an urban homestead, and deer aren't a big problem here. That's not to say that urban homesteads don't have deer problems. I've seen deer in my town. We live about 5 miles from a fish and game wildlife reserve, a pretty large one. And I mean, I've seen them in town before. They've never been in my yard that I've ever seen. And but you know, you can't just dismiss it just because you live within a city limits. Deer don't read the signs. They don't know it's the city limits, and they will come in. And I think after a while, sometimes they figure out that is sometimes the safest place to be, because there's, you know, not guns flying, shooting off at them and things like that. So, you know, it's not to say you won't never have a problem with deer. Well, we're going to talk about a couple things with deer, how to keep them out. One would be physical barriers. That's a fence. I mean, but it takes a really tall fence. It takes about an 8-foot fence to keep them out, and that can get pretty expensive. But something else you can do, which can be just as expensive because you're talking twice as much fence, is build a double fence. And when you do that, you only have to have a 5 or 6 foot fence, but you have to space them, have one inside and one outside, about 3 to 5 feet apart, because a deer doesn't like to jump in an area where it feels trapped and it won't jump in there, because it'll have to do a double jump. It's too far for it to get across both fences, and it don't like jumping between fences like that. So a lot of people have had success with building that type of a fence. That's one way you can go. If you've got a permanent structure, permanent garden area, not too big, and you got the money, it's probably the best thing you can do is build a nice fenced-in structure around your garden. It serves a lot of purposes with other animals, not just deer. So, yeah, a nice fenced-in garden is great to have if you can afford it, but it is costly. I think, personally, one of the best things you can have is a dog. If you have a good outside dog that's running free, stays on your property, it's a great thing to have. I have a dog. We don't have deer problems, so it's not really an issue. But he comes in handy in other things I'll talk about here in a few minutes with keeping animals out of my garden. But, yeah, a dog works really, really good. It's probably one of the best things you can do, honestly, is to have a dog out there, garden it. They'll be out there at night walking around, checking things out. They'll keep the deer at bay. Another thing you can do is purchase an electronic repeller. Yard Sentinel makes this ultrasonic repeller. It's an inaudible sound wave that it throws out, and the deer hear it, other animals hear it. It works for all kinds of animals, not just deer. But, you know, I've never used one. But I was reading some reviews on Amazon a while back, and it sounded like people have some pretty good luck with it. So it might be something you might look into. They're not real expensive. I'll put a link in the show notes of this episode if maybe you want to go check and see what it is and find out a little bit more about it. They look like they'd be handy. I've thought about getting one just for other reasons, not deer, of course, but other reasons. Another thing you can do, and this is kind of an odd thing, but you can spray predator urine around your garden. Believe it or not, there is a website called predatorp.com, and they sell predator urine to work up a fear in deer and other animals and keep them out of your garden. So you might want to go check out predatorp.com and spray some urine around your yard. I think it'd probably work. I think you'd have to spray it quite often. I mean, every time it rains, I'm sure it would just wash it away. But you can read up on that a little bit. Never used it. Now, I did have a friend who tried this. This is scattering human hair around a garden. And they said it worked really good. And I've heard other people talk about it, too. And, they just went to a barber shop and asked for the hair and asked for some hair. And they took it around and kind of made a border around their garden with it. They just kind of went all the way around. Now, I tend to think that if you're in an area where the deer are real used to people, it probably wouldn't work as well. But if you live way out in a rural area where the deer are pretty skittish around people, I could see that working pretty good. I think the deer around here are so used to people, I really don't think it would work around my place, around this area. We have, like I said, the fish and game reserve here. And wow, these deer are not skittish. You can get sometimes within 50 yards of them just walking around, and they won't even act like they're spooked. They really don't pay a lot of attention to you sometimes. So I don't know how well that would work. It might work for you. Might be something you'll try and have good success with. Now, there's also a product out called Deer Scram. Now, they make other Scram products for other animals, but they have one specifically for deer. I think it's deer and rabbit, actually, the one they have for deer. And I've heard that it works really well. I heard another podcaster talking about it, and he swears by it. He says the people he's talked to have had great success with it. It's a great product. It's all organic, and it's like a pelletized product you spread around. And from what I understand, it's not that it puts off an unpleasant smell. Whatever the smell is, it causes fear in the deer and keeps them away. So check out Deer Scram. I'll have a link for that in the show notes as well, so you can check that out and see what that's all about. I think that's, there's probably other things you can do for deer. Those are the common things. Those are the things I think that people talk about the most and say work. Give those things a shot. Deer can absolutely destroy a garden. But another common animal that can flat out tear up a garden are rabbits. Rabbits we do have around here. And now I don't have a lot of problem with them because most of my garden, half of my garden is up in raised beds, really tall raised beds, and they just can't get to them. I do have some on the ground, though. And, it is a threat around here. So what do you do for rabbits? Well, I just said one of them, didn't I? You build tall raised beds. They can't get to them. That's one way. It's a kind of a preventive action ahead of time. The Ultrasonic Repeller is supposed to work for rabbits as well. I mentioned the Scram product. They have it for rabbits. And now I did hear that it didn't work as well for rabbits, so I don't know. Now this was interesting. I ran across this article from growsonu.com, and it's a study that was done in Amsterdam, and as Dutch farmers have devised a hot and spicy way to stop rabbits and rodents from munching their lettuce, carrots, and wheat. This is interesting. Spraying fields with the American sauce Tabasco sends the rabbits 3 feet in the air with shock and running for cover, said a spokesman for a local agriculture cooperative. The Dutch Animal Protection Society is happy with the spicy repellent, unworried by the possibility of burned bunnies' mouths. Preventive measures are exactly what we want. It's better than going into the fields with a shotgun, said animal welfare spokesman. It goes on down to say the farmers will now try to make Tabasco an officially recognized pesticide for subsidized use on larger scale. At least 5 small supermarket-sized bottles of the spicy sauce are needed for spraying 1 hectare or 2.5 acres of crops. Now, I did a little bit further study on that, and I actually found a guy who'd done some study here in the United States, and he said for a small garden application, like 1 ounce of Tabasco per gallon of water, and spray that around on your crops. And the rabbits do not like that. Obviously, rabbits nor other rodents. It says that study's for rabbits and rodents, so it would work for other things as well. So I think that's awesome. I think if that works for you and you're having trouble with rabbits and other rodents chewing up your garden, what a great natural way to protect your garden, and really simple. An ounce of Tabasco and a gallon of water. Sounds pretty simple. What about other rodents? I think it's mostly the same as rabbits. The Ultrasonic Repeller, the Scram, the Tabasco. Now, if you have like moles and voles and things that will come up underneath into your garden, that's where raised beds do work really good, especially if you can have some kind of a barrier between the soil in your raised bed and the ground. Now, I have built my raised beds, and if you can actually look on my website and find where I built mine out of pallets, used pallets, and they were chemical-free pallets, quarter pallets, and they're about 3 foot tall. But I didn't want 3 foot of deep dirt in the raised beds, so I had actually stacked 2-3 pallets. I think it was 3 pallets on the inside, deep up. laid landscape fabric over that, then cardboard, and then filled my dirt up from there, creating a really tall, way high barrier, keeping anything from coming up underneath into the beds. Now you can put hardware cloth down at ground level. Like I think it's a 1/2 inch square hardware cloth. You could probably use chicken wire, but I think smaller animals could probably squeeze through that and chew on that, maybe get through it. I'm not real sure. I know hardware cloth would work very well. It's really durable, solid stuff. And that would work good if you laid that in the bottom of a raised bed to keep out the rodents. Another problem you might have in your garden are birds. Here's where my dog is great. My dog hates birds, hates them. And he has a dog door in our back door, and he just runs through that thing. We can hear him at night. He'll run out there and chase birds off, or in the evening. And he pretty much keeps an eye on things. He don't like birds, so he's all the time chasing them away and getting rid of them. So, and I don't mind a few birds around to eat the bugs that we don't want around here, but he'll keep them. He sees them in the garden. He'll run out there and yap at them a little bit and keep them flying. Also, the ultrasonic repeller works great for birds. It says really anything to scare the birds is going to work really good. How about an old-fashioned scarecrow? I mean, people used to use them all the time for a good reason, because they worked. But you've probably seen a cartoon of a scarecrow with 20 crows sitting on it. It didn't really work too well, but it's worth a shot. Build a scarecrow to keep the birds out. I think after a while they're going to get used to it, and I think it could work on deer or rabbits or anything else temporarily, but I think once they get used to it being there all the time, they're probably going to lose their fear of it. Here's a really common good way to get rid of birds, and that's tying shiny ribbons. They're going to flop in the wind. Pie pans, I've seen pie pans hanging off of trellises and things, flopping around, banging. The flash of it scares the birds away. Heather over at homesteadhippie.com suggested pinwheels in one of her blog posts. Those little twirly pinwheel things, plastic things you stick in the ground and they just twirl around. She suggested those and says that keeps the birds out. So I thought that was a great idea. Now, something that when I was a kid and we had our barns, we used to stick rubber snakes up on the rafters of the barns to keep the pigeons out. And I don't know, I think we had less pigeons than some other people, but we still had pigeons in our barn, but, lay some rubber snakes around in your raised beds, and, birds don't like that. You might get a big hawk come down and snatch it or something, or an owl, but, the little birds are going to stay away from it. But those are some, good ideas for birds, I think. Well, how about destructive insects? I think, personally, anything natural, of course, is going to be the best way to do this. And I think the best natural things you can do are introducing other insects that eat the destructive insects. So releasing praying mantises or ladybugs into your garden, I think, are two of the best things you can do. And you can purchase those online. I will put a couple links in the show notes for where you can purchase those. And I think that's one of the best things you can do, honestly. You can use neem oil to get rid of squash bugs, various beetles, aphids, and a couple hundred other bugs as well. But just remember, a little bit of neem oil goes a long way. You'll want to dilute that with water and put that lightly on your plants, because it can burn plants, shock plants a little bit if you overdo it with the neem oil. Just be delicate with it, but it works really good to deter and kill some bugs like aphids and things. So yeah, use neem oil. As a matter of fact, with aphids, you can use something as mild as a Dawn dish soap, and a little bit of Dawn dish soap and some water in a spray bottle, and go out there and spray that. You'll just wash the aphids right off, and it's pretty simple. I think that about does it. Those are just some good ideas, I think, to get you started thinking about protecting your garden. Or if you're already having trouble, you might try a few of those things, see how they work. Some of them are free, some of them are really low cost, some of them cost you a little bit of money. But hey, you know what? We work hard to build our soil, to plant our crops, and to grow them and harvest them. And we want to be able to enjoy them. We want to get them to the kitchen table, and we don't want to just give them to all the wildlife. I don't mind sharing a little, but we don't do this just to feed the wildlife. We want to put some on the table as well. So, hey, if you enjoy these podcasts, do me a favor, run on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review, and share this podcast with someone that you know will enjoy it. And I think that's how we grow. We're having some pretty good download numbers. I've been real pleased. We're ranking really high in search engines, and I appreciate that. Appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast, everyone who shares the podcast, everyone who leaves a comment or a review somewhere. I mean, you can go to Stitcher, you can go to Google Play, iTunes, of course, or the website and leave a comment there. Really appreciate that. I really, really do. And, I just think that the more people we have committed to living a homesteading lifestyle, the better the world will be. So if we can get this information into the hands of people, I think the world will be better for it. So, hey, until next time, happy homesteading.
Thanks for listening. To see the show notes for this podcast or listen to other podcast episodes, go to smalltownhomestead.com. There you can also read our blog, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and take advantage of the many resources we make available to help you along in your homesteading journey. Please share this podcast and help us to carry out our mission of helping others to homestead today for a better tomorrow.